The great hall of the Empress was built to impress. Its high silver walls glowed with the light of 100 floating orbs, and the floor reflected like still water. The banners of the Empire hung heavy from the ceiling, marked with golden dragons, that seemed to stare down at all who entered. Yet tonight even this grand place felt cold and heavy. The Empress sat on her throne, her crown shining like fire under the lights. Her eyes, however, were not filled with pride. They were filled with sorrow. At her side stood her daughter, the young princess dressed in silk, her orange scales glowing softly in the light. She had wings, delicate and bright, but her mouth was silent. She had never spoken a word. The court whispered about her. Some called her cursed, others called her broken. For years, healers had come with strange devices, alien medicines, and glowing crystals. All had failed. The galaxy's best minds had bowed their heads in defeat. The Empress had one last hope. She raised her hand, and the hall grew silent. Her voice carried across the chamber. People of the Empire, I will make my promise clear. If anyone teaches my daughter to speak again, I will give them anything they desire, even the galaxy itself. Gasps filled the hall. Some laughed, thinking it was madness. Others leaned forward, greedy with dreams of power. But among the crowd, one figure did not laugh. He was no noble, no doctor, no scholar. He was a human mechanic from Earth, dressed in plain clothes, his tool belt hanging at his side. His hands were strong and scarred, not from battle but from years of fixing broken machines. He stepped forward slowly, every eye turning to him. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. A human? Ridiculous. Surely the Empress has lost her mind. Mechanic bowed his head, then looked at the princess. Her large blue eyes met his, and for a moment he did not see a curse. He saw fear, he saw loneliness, and he saw hope. Faint but real. The Empress studied him closely. You are no healer, she said. You are no doctor. Why do you stand before me? The mechanic spoke in a calm, steady voice. Because I fix what others throw away. Machines, ships, tools. And sometimes, people are not broken. They are just misunderstood. The court erupted in laughter. Nobles sneered, shaking their heads. A foolish human with foolish words. Send him back to his scrap piles. But the Empress raised her hand, silencing them. There was something in the mechanic's tone that caught her attention. Something different. Something true. You believe you can help my daughter? The Empress asked. The mechanic nodded. I cannot promise success, but I promise I will not give up. Not until I know the truth of her silence. For the first time in years, the Empress allowed herself a small smile. Then you may try. Fail and you will answer to me. Succeed. Her voice grew stronger, echoing across the hall. And the galaxy will be yours. The nobles gasped again, but the mechanic's eyes never left the princess. He knelt down before her, slowly removing his cap. With a gentle smile, he held it out. Hello, he whispered softly. My name is Daniel. May I be your friend? The princess blinked. She tilted her head, curious. For the first time, her small claws reached out, touching the cap. Her mouth opened slightly as if trying to form a sound. Nothing came, but her eyes shone with something new. Trust. The Empress's heart tightened. She had seen thousands try and fail, but not once had her daughter reacted like this. The hall whispered again. It's a trick. No child responds to a human. Impossible. But impossible had just begun. The Empress rose from her throne and stepped down, her long gown brushing the polished floor. She placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder and spoke firmly. Human mechanic, you will stay in the palace. You will have whatever tools you need. But remember this, if you fail me, nothing in this galaxy will protect you. Daniel nodded. He knew the risk, but he also knew something the others did not. This child was not broken. She was locked away, waiting for someone patient enough to listen. As the Empress and her daughter turned to leave, one shadowy figure slipped quietly from the hall. His eyes burned with anger. He had no wish for the princess to ever speak, for, if she did, secrets long buried would rise again. The mechanic did not see the danger yet. But already enemies moved against him. In the silence of the grand hall, the promise of the Empress still echoed. Teach her to speak again, and I will give you the galaxy. And for the first time, Daniel felt that maybe, just maybe, the fate of more than one empire rested in his hands. The next morning, the palace was alive with rumors. Servants whispered in corners. Soldiers scoffed as they polished their weapons, and nobles laughed behind their jeweled masks. A human mechanic in the royal chambers? It was madness. Daniel ignored the whispers. He had been given a small workshop near the princess's quarters. For him, the smell of oil, sparks of metal, and the hum of tools felt more like home than the polished marble of the palace. Yet this was no simple repair job. This time, he was not fixing a ship or an engine. He was trying to unlock the silence of a child who carried the weight of an empire. The princess sat quietly at the edge of the room, her wings folded close. She did not look at him directly, but her eyes followed his every move. Daniel noticed how she clutched a small toy, an old piece of carved wood shaped like a bird. It was worn from years of holding. He crouched down in front of her. Do you like birds? He asked gently. The princess did not answer, but she turned the toy over in her claws and gave the faintest nod. Daniel smiled. Then maybe we'll teach your voice to fly too. The Empress had given him freedom but not peace. Every day officials checked his progress. They mocked him openly. Still no words? What did you expect? Humans fix machines, not royalty. They wanted him gone, and Daniel knew it. But he also knew something else. The child was not broken. She was trapped. Days passed. He tried simple exercises first, sound games, gentle humming, even building small devices that played tones to encourage her to copy them. She listened, eyes wide, but made no sound. Then one evening, Daniel noticed something strange. As he worked on a device, he dropped a metal piece by accident. It clinked against the floor, sharp and clear. The princess flinched, then opened her mouth as if to mimic it. A breath came out, almost like a whisper of the same tone. Daniel froze. His heart raced. You heard that sound, didn't you? The princess blinked, looking guilty, as if she had revealed a secret. Daniel leaned closer. It's all right, you don't have to hide it from me. For the first time, the girl smiled faintly. That night, Daniel sketched designs furiously. He began building a strange device, a machine of rings and crystals, something between a musical instrument and a speaking tool. If sounds could draw her voice out, he would create a path for it to follow. But not everyone was pleased with his progress. From the shadows of the palace, Councillor Vaynar, one of the Empress's oldest rivals, watched with cold eyes. He spoke to his followers in whispers. The child must never speak. If her voice is heard, truths will come to light that will tear us down. That human is dangerous. Make him fail. The next morning, Daniel discovered half his tools missing, his notes scattered, and one of his devices broken. He clenched his jaw. Someone was working against him. He looked at the princess, who sat quietly with her wooden bird. Her eyes seemed to say, "Don't give up." So he didn't. Instead, Daniel worked harder. He rebuilt the device, this time with hidden locks only he could open. He taught the princess with patience, using sound, rhythm, and gestures. Slowly, she began to respond, not with words, but with small tones, hums, and whispers. Each time she made a sound, Daniel encouraged her, his voice steady and kind. Good. That's perfect. Don't be afraid. The Empress visited often, her eyes sharp, her hope fragile. She saw progress where others saw nothing. When the princess hummed a clear note, the Empress's lips trembled. You did that? She whispered, holding her daughter's hand. The girl only looked at Daniel. Hope grew in the Empress's heart, but danger grew in the palace. Nobles began. to scheme, fearing the mechanic's success. Guards received bribes to lose his supplies. Poison found its way into his food. Twice Daniel caught shadows lurking outside the princess's room. One night, as he finished adjusting the device, he heard a faint voice behind him. "Stop." Daniel froze. Slowly, he turned. The princess stood there, her small claws clutching the wooden bird, her lips trembling. "Da." She tried again, her voice weak but real. Daniel's chest tightened. It was not a full word, but it was more than silence. It was the start. The Empress entered just then, her eyes widening at the sound. Tears filled her face, though. She quickly hid them. She gripped Daniel's arm. "She spoke," the Empress whispered fiercely. "She spoke." But in the shadows of the hall, Counselor Vaynar listened, his face twisted with rage. "This cannot continue," he hissed. "If the princess learns to speak, we are finished. The human must die." The mechanic did not know it yet, but his challenge was no longer just to unlock the princess's voice. It was to survive long enough for her to speak the truth the galaxy feared. And so the game of patience, danger, and hidden enemies had truly begun. The palace looked calm from the outside, but inside whispers crawled through every corridor like poison. Servants lowered their voices when Daniel walked past. Nobles stared with narrow eyes, their smiles sharp as blades. To them, a human mechanic. Helping the princess was not a miracle, it was a threat. Daniel tried to ignore it. He focused only on the princess. Each day she grew braver. Her hums became longer, clearer. Sometimes she even tried to copy his words. "Hell," she whispered one morning, her mouth shaping the sound carefully. Daniel leaned forward, excitement in his chest. "Hello," he encouraged softly. "Try again." "Hello." The princess giggled silently, then pressed the wooden bird toy to her, lips as if it was her secret teacher. Her innocence made Daniel's heart ache. He had fixed engines, weapons, even ships falling apart in space. But this was different. This was life itself, trying to blossom. Yet as her progress grew, so did the danger. Late one night, Daniel returned to his workshop and found the door broken. His notes were scattered across the floor, his devices smashed. He crouched, picking up the shattered pieces of crystal, his jaw tightening. This was not an accident. Someone wanted his work destroyed. From the shadows, a servant slipped inside, pale and shaking. "Sir, you should be careful. Counselor Vaynar speaks often of you. He says no human should touch the princess. He says, if she speaks, the empire will fall." Daniel's eyes hardened. Why would a child's voice scare a counselor? The servant looked around nervously. "Because the princess carries a truth hidden from all. If she speaks it aloud, the council's lies will burn." Before Daniel could ask more, the servant fled, too afraid to linger. That night, Daniel could not sleep. He sat near the princess's chamber, watching her breathe softly as she clutched her wooden bird. He wondered what secret her silence was guarding, and why the galaxy feared her voice. The next day, the Empress summoned him privately. She stood in her study, surrounded by maps of star systems and records of past wars. "You must understand, mechanic," she said quietly. "If you succeed, you will not only give my daughter her voice, you will change the balance of the empire. Many will not forgive you for that." Daniel met her gaze without fear. "I don't care about power or thrones. I only care about her. She deserves to be heard." The Empress studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. For the first time, her tone softened. "Perhaps humanity was underestimated. Perhaps your kind sees truths that others have forgotten. But betrayal was already closing in. That night, Daniel walked into his workshop and smelled something sharp. Too sharp. He froze. Poison. The food left for him on the table was laced with it. He threw it away and scanned the shadows, but the corridor was empty. The next day, the guards assigned to protect the princess were suddenly reassigned. New guards arrived, but Daniel noticed their eyes. They were not there to protect. They were there to watch. And still, the princess grew stronger. She managed a new word. Soft, but clear. Bird, she whispered, clutching her toy. Daniel's heart leapt. He clapped his hands gently. Yes, that's it, Bird, you're doing it. The princess smiled shyly, her wings twitching with excitement. But at that very moment, Counselor Vaynar watched from behind a curtain. His face was dark as stone. He turned to his followers and whispered, This must end. Tonight, we silence the human forever. When darkness fell, Daniel stayed in the workshop, adjusting the sound device. He did not hear the assassins slip through the halls, their blades gleaming faintly in the light. But the princess did. Her eyes widened, and for the first time, her voice broke the silence in a cry. Dan! The sound was faint, trembling, but it was enough. Daniel spun around just as the shadows lunged. He grabbed the nearest tool, a heavy wrench, and swung with desperate strength. The clash rang through the room, sparks flying. The princess screamed again, louder this time, a single word. Stop! The assassins froze in shock. Not at her command, but at the fact that she had spoken. Guards rushed in, alerted by the noise, and the attackers fled. Daniel held the trembling princess close, his heart pounding. You saved me, he whispered. The Empress stormed into the room moments later, her eyes blazing with fury. When she saw her daughter clinging to Daniel, her lips parted. She had heard the voice too. She spoke, the Empress whispered. She truly spoke. The court would hear of it by morning. The galaxy would not remain silent, and those who feared the truth would strike harder than ever before. Daniel now understood. The child's first true words had not only saved him, they had declared war on the lies that ruled the Empire. And in the shadows, Counselor Vaynar's vow burned stronger. If the human lives, if the princess speaks again, we are finished. By the stars, they will not survive. The palace was never quiet again after that night. The sound of the princess's trembling voice, one word, one cry, echoed in every corner like a spark that refused to die. Servants whispered with awe, soldiers repeated the story, and nobles pretended not to believe it, but all knew the truth. The silent princess had spoken. For the Empress, it was a miracle. She ordered celebrations, though small and hidden. But behind her joy, her eyes carried sharp fire. She knew the council would not celebrate. They would plot. Daniel, however, felt no celebration. He only felt weight. The princess had risked everything to save him. Her voice, fragile and new, had been used not for play but for survival. He could not let her down now. Each morning he worked with her in the workshop. The device he built glowed with soft rings of light, producing gentle tones. The princess copied them, at first with faint whispers, then with shaky words. Hello, Bird. Dan. Every new sound was like sunlight breaking through clouds. The Empress sometimes watched silently, her hands clasped, tears hiding behind her crown. But shadows lingered. Counselor Vaynar stood in a dark chamber, his followers gathered around him. His voice was like poison. The Empress believes the human brings hope. She is blind. If the girl speaks before the council, our secrets will burn. The old wars, the lost crimes, they will all come out. The Empire will collapse. One of his men asked nervously, Then what do we do? Vaynar's eyes narrowed. We cut out the root, kill the human, and if we must, silence the child forever. The words spread faster than the Empress's guards could catch them. Daniel felt the danger, even if no one told him directly. Tools went missing again. Guards forgot to lock doors. He often woke in the night to feel unseen eyes watching him. But the princess trusted him. That trust was enough. One evening, Daniel placed a small mirror in front of her. He spoke slowly. Say what you see. The princess looked at her reflection. Her lips trembled. Me. Daniel froze. Then he laughed, his chest shaking with relief. Yes, that's you. Me. The princess giggled, proud of herself. She repeated it, louder. Me. The Empress entered just in time to hear. She clutched the edge of the table, her breath catching. My daughter, she whispered. For a moment. Mother and child locked eyes. And something ancient passed between them. Love that no curse, no silence, no empire could bury. But joy lasted only seconds. A blast shook the corridor outside. Smoke filled the air, soldiers shouting, assassins again, but bolder this time. They stormed the palace halls with blades and energy rifles, cutting down guards. Daniel pulled the princess behind him, his wrench tight in his hand. Stay down! The door burst open. Figures cloaked in black rushed forward. One lunged at Daniel, but he swung hard, the wrench cracking against armor. Sparks flew, and the assassin fell. The princess cried out, but this time her cry carried words. Stop! Stop! The attackers froze for a heartbeat. The word was clear, powerful. It rang through the chamber like a command. The Empress's guards seized the moment, charging in to push back the assassins. Blood and sparks painted the floor, but one by one the shadows fell. When silence returned, the princess still clutched Daniel's arm, her lips trembling. She whispered again, softer now. Stop. The Empress fell to her knees beside her daughter, holding her close. She kissed her head, tears sliding down her face. You have your voice, my star. No one will ever silence you again. But Daniel saw more than a child's progress. He saw power. When the princess spoke, people listened, not only because it was a miracle, but because her voice carried weight. Even trained killers hesitated at her command. The Empress realized it too. That was why she summoned the council within days. My daughter will speak before you, she declared. You will hear the truth from her lips, and when you hear it, you will know the age of lies is ending. The council murmured with fear and anger. Vanar clenched his fists beneath the table. Daniel stood at the princess's side. She was small, fragile, her wings trembling. But when she looked up at him, he saw no fear in her eyes. Only trust. Are you ready? Daniel whispered. The princess nodded slowly. Her voice, though quiet, was steady. Yes. The Empress announced the gathering. Nobles, soldiers, and envoys from across the empire would attend. For the first time in history, the silent princess would speak. But as the day approached, Daniel could not shake the unease. The halls were heavy with whispers, the guards restless, the shadows darker than ever. And somewhere in those shadows, Vanar prepared his final move. If she speaks before the galaxy, he told his followers coldly, we are dead men, so she will not live to speak, neither will her human. The night before the gathering, Daniel watched the princess sleep. She held the wooden bird close to her chest, her lips parting softly as if dreaming of words not yet spoken. He whispered quietly, almost to himself. Tomorrow, you will show them all. Tomorrow your voice will wake the stars. He did not know it yet, but the next day would shake not just the palace, not just the empire, but the entire galaxy. The day of the council gathering arrived with heavy skies. Above the palace, warships hovered in tight formation, their dark hulls shining in the sun. Streets below overflowed with citizens who had heard the impossible rumor. The silent princess would speak. Some prayed, some doubted, and many feared what her words might mean. Inside the Grand Council Hall, the tension was even sharper. Nobles filled the chamber in glittering robes, alien envoys sat in silence, and soldiers lined the walls with their hands on their weapons. At the center stood the Empress, tall and radiant, though her eyes revealed the fire of a warrior guarding her child. At her side was the princess, small and fragile, clutching her wooden bird toy. Beside her stood Daniel, plain in his mechanics, clothes but steady as a pillar. He had faced laughter, betrayal, and blades to bring the child's voice this far. Now the galaxy itself would hear it. The Empress raised her hand. "Today," she declared, "my daughter will speak. You doubted her, you mocked her, you feared her silence. Now you will hear the truth." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some nobles smirked, others narrowed their eyes in hatred. Among them, Councillor Vaynar hid his rage behind a calm mask. His assassins had failed, but he had one final plan. The princess stepped forward slowly. The hall seemed to swallow her tiny frame. Her wings trembled, and for a moment she looked like she might retreat. Daniel bent down, his voice low but strong. "You're not alone. Say what you feel. Say what is inside you." She looked at him, then at her mother. Both faces carried faith. She lifted her head. At first, only a whisper came. "My..." The hall fell into perfect silence. Not a cough, not a shuffle. Only the voice of the princess. "My name is Cirrus." The words were shaky, but they were words. The Empress gasped, covering her lips. Nobles stiffened in disbelief. The princess continued, her voice growing clearer. "I am not broken. I am not cursed. I was silent, because the truth was buried inside me. And now I will speak it." Gasps spread across the chamber. Councillor Vaynar's face twisted. She held up her wooden bird toy, her voice stronger. "You ruled through fear. You hid the crimes of the old wars. My voice carries the records of those lies. Every time you silenced me, I heard the echoes. And now, the galaxy will hear them too." Daniel's eyes widened. He understood now. Her silence was not natural. Someone had used ancient technology to suppress her words, to lock forbidden truths inside her mind. By teaching her to speak, he had broken that prison. The Empress's voice rang out. "Let them hear, daughter. Let them hear everything." The princess opened her mouth, and her voice shifted. It became layered, almost like 1,000 voices speaking through her. Ancient recordings spilled out, hidden deep within her. The chamber filled with sounds of battle, screams of civilians, and the dark orders of council leaders from years ago. Burn their colonies. Erase the records. No survivors. The words belonged to Vaynar and his allies. Proof of genocide. Proof of crimes. The nobles turned pale. Soldiers shifted uneasily. The chamber shook with the weight of truth. Councillor Vaynar leapt to his feet, his face red with fury. "Lies. Illusions. Silence her now." He drew a weapon, aiming at the princess. Before he could fire, Daniel stepped in front of her, wrench in hand. His voice was steady. "You'll have to go through me first." The Empress's guards drew their blades, rushing to protect the throne. The hall erupted into chaos. Nobles shouting, soldiers clashing, Vaynar screaming for blood. But over it all came the princess's voice again. "Stop." The word rang like thunder. The fighting froze. Even Vaynar stumbled back. Her voice carried power beyond sound. It carried authority the galaxy had forgotten. The Empress rose from her throne, her voice clear and final. "You wished for silence, but my daughter has spoken. The crimes are revealed. Vaynar, you are finished." Guards seized him, dragging him down despite his shouts. The nobles lowered their heads, fear in their eyes. The hall grew quiet again. The princess turned to Daniel, her eyes bright with tears. "Thank you." He knelt, smiling softly. "No. Thank you for trusting me." The Empress stepped forward, placing a hand on Daniel's shoulder. Her voice carried across the chamber. "You have given my daughter her voice. You have unchained the truth. And I will keep my promise." She lifted her crown high. "Human mechanic, I give you the galaxy's loyalty, not as a servant, not as a tool, but as a savior of empires." The chamber thundered with applause, though some clapped with fear, others with respect. The galaxy had changed. Daniel looked at the princess once more. She smiled, her small voice whispering her first full sentence. We are free. And so it was written. The silent princess found her voice. The Empress kept her promise, and humanity, once mocked as small and weak, proved again that even a single human could shake the stars.